Okay, it looks like we're connected and we're live.
Great. Welcome, everybody. I hope everyone's doing well. Look healthy, anyway. Great. So, let's see. Going down to housekeeping. You're probably doing attendance, I guess. Is that right, Rodney?
Yes, I'm taking attendance as people log on.
How you doing, Jesse? And I don't know if anyone has had a chance to look at over the minutes from November, but if you have any edits, please let us know. If not, I make a motion to pass the November CPC meeting minutes.
I'll second.
All in favor? Great. Okay, so we have some other action items here, and they would include selection of 2021 CTC officers, and then discuss and then vote for Joe Perloff as president, Mary Attaway as president-elect, Pam Knox as treasurer, and Rodney, as is customary, would remain secretary.
I got a question. I know Joe hasn't been able to attend the meetings at this time. Are we going to move the meeting time, or is he going to be able to move his schedule?
Good question.
I will make sure that his schedule is clear.
Okay. That'll work.
Got it. And yeah,
Just link that to his paycheck and we'll be all set.
Well, I'll do that as well. I did actually put it on his calendar for today. I don't know why he's not here yet, but he should be at some point. I'll text him.
yeah, thank you. Yeah, I was getting ready to do that myself. Okay, so do we need to wait to approve everyone else? Do we have a quorum?
I have 8 voting members here, so we do have a quorum.
Okay. Do the people listed as officers, specifically like Joe and Mary, do they need to be present in order for us to vote on them? Okay.
Do I need to leave if you vote?
We have approval for you. Okay, so I make a motion to approve Joe as president, Mary as president-elect, Pam as treasurer, and once again, as is customary, Rodney stays on as secretary.
I'll second that slate.
Great. All in favor? Perfect. It has been moved that Joe is president, Mary vice president, president-elect, Pam treasurer, Rodney, as usual. Okay, so review motions that were passed during the November meeting. I didn't attend, and unfortunately, I don't. Let's see. You guys have the agenda. Anybody have the agenda in front of them? I mean, the minutes from.
I can read the one motion that was passed if you'd like, Sean.
That'd be awesome. Thank you.
So essentially, a motion was passed for Mary Attaway to be the president-elect for 2021.
Okay. All right, perfect. So, Lee, you have a motion with regard to the tree steward award.
Oh, okay. Well, it's not a motion so much as we have until March to get the nominee or the person that we're going to give the award to Stacy Smith. So we've got a while. I can put this in the January agenda. I sent out an email to everybody to give me nominations for a company or a business or a person that you want to nominate as a tree steward. I've gotten 5 nominations back. So we're still just gathering that. But we do need to decide about what gift we want to give them or what kind of an award we want to give them. But it's not on the agenda for this month, so we can push that off until January because we have until March to do this.
I'm cool in talking it over. I think I emailed you, Lee. All voting members have the ability to make a motion, I guess, right? And so if you, I guess it can be a discussion at least. Can you present or share with us the nominees?
Oh, sure. We've got the racetrack gas station with all the new work that they did and the tree plantings behind them, right at the loop there at Lexington Road. And we have the Broad Acres residents for taking over the watering and the tree care after the trees were planted there. Mark nominated, I don't know that I can pronounce this. It's obviously a company, Bollinger Ingelheim, used to be Mariel.
Right.
Okay. Because he said that they had done a lot of high quality tree work and tree plantings that aren't really visible to people unless they're on their company campus. You nominated Silas Carter. You could tell us more about that. And then there was another nomination for the Weed Warriors that take care of Memorial Park. So does anybody else have any other nominations you want to make? Okay, well, we've got 5. I
So
can
do
completely,
two awards, right?
we can do whatever we want. We haven't given the awards in a couple of years, so we can do whatever we want. We can give 2, we can give 1. We just got to figure out what we want to give them. And maybe I don't know if we still have some prints of the tree that owns itself. Mary's saying we do. We can use those as a gift, and then decide whether we want to come up with like a plaque or a separate award in addition to that gift. What I could do is send out an email that describes these 5 nominees and gives a little bit of background about them. And, we can think about it. And then maybe y'all can be thinking of other nominees too. Because we do have time for this and I've got to let my dog in.
I'm honestly not familiar with, like how we would do a group vote. Does anybody have any suggestions on how to do that? We simply email them in and somebody tally the votes or how?
Yeah, you can send them to me. Once I send out that email that gives a little description of each of the people and companies that have been nominated, you can just vote and send it back to me and I'll tally it. I've been in touch with Stacy Smith and the tentative plan right now is to have an outdoor celebration at Terrapin where the winner can just come and pick up the award and they'll stay socially distanced. They're not going to have a green expo in March though. but they are still going to give awards.
Okay, so
You're muted, Phil. Phil, you're muted.
How about that? It's amazing when you push that unmute button, how that works. Thank you for reminding me that you couldn't hear me, Nina. I'm wondering if it would be appropriate to discuss the possibility of having two categories, an individual/individuals, and organization/company or industry. That way, in my thinking, we wouldn't have to award both every year or either one for that matter, but it might be appropriate to have sort of two different categories so that we kind of think about them separately. Just a thought.
Are there any other thoughts about that?
I like that idea.
Okay, I do too. I don't know if this is the time or the appropriate place to make a motion to have two awards. If it is, then I'll make a motion to have two separate awards in the categories that Phil describes, an individual category or a group of individuals versus a company or business.
I'll second that.
cool. All in favor to have two separate awards?
Okay. Phil, you're still muted.
You couldn't hear that. As a point of clarification, again, this is the potential for those two categories each year with no requirement that they both be awarded each year.
Thank you, Phil.
So I think Lee requested I explain or sort of cover, who Silas is.
Sean, since I'm going to send out an email that describes everybody, do you want to just write me with the description of Silas and I will send it out to everybody with the other ones?
Sounds great.
Okay.
Great idea.
So do we vote?
Not on the recipient yet. We do need to, I guess, establish the gift, and if we're going to give them a separate type of award, a plaque or a little piece of glass, or like a separate award, or if we just want to give them a gift. Are there any thoughts on that? I think giving them the tree that owns itself, the print that we have of that, is a nice gift. What were you going to say, Pam? Pam, you're muted.
Figures. I don't feel comfortable voting on the recipients till I've seen the description, so I think we definitely need to wait on that. If we give it, for example, if we would give it to the Broad Acres group, then as a bunch of individuals, then who gets it?
So there were Nina and Phil, I'm sure you will attest that there were really two individuals that we worked with most. That was Danny and once again Silas. That in between watering that first year, Phil and I would take turns, and Silas would always water at least where he could reach with a 100-foot hose. So I really appreciate that, and he took that on himself. So initially it was Danny, helping us, the collaboration, and then once again Silas.
Does Broad Acres have a community room or some kind of place where people gather, or that they could display an
They
award
do.
like that?
They,
Okay.
they, um,
Okay.
and I know,
Everyone that's nominated somebody, send me a blurb if you haven't already. Send me a blurb about them, and then I can complete it and I'll send it out as an email. Is it appropriate for us to vote through email? It may not be. We may need to just vote in January. Okay, we'll just vote in January. But I want y'all to have information about them before the vote. So I'll send that email out
Well,
soon.
when I was asking about do we vote a little while ago, I think I interrupted a motion that had been seconded, and I was just asking if we were going to vote now on that. That is the two categories. I don't think we ever voted, did we? On that motion?
I think it was approved that two categories,
Okay.
we'll be voting on two different categories, but Lee and everybody else, I suppose we should probably lay out. Lee, can you provide a couple different options for tips, and so we can be prepared to vote for that as well?
Okay.
And I will say just real quick, like I'm sure Silas would appreciate honestly something more than a plaque, like a gift card or something that would be, appropriate
Okay.
for him.
Okay, I'll lay out some options.
Wow.
Yeah, so that'll be coming in an email within the next week.
Okay, cool. Okay, Pam, you're up, it looks like.
Okay. I emailed the treasurer's report to you earlier this afternoon. I'm not going to go through the raw numbers because you can read those yourself. The money market account got 17 cents of interest. We had one donation that was put into the checking account by Rodney. That was from the Athens Association of Community Trust or something like that. It's listed on the report from one of the big donors that we had, the people that are looking for donations had asked. And then we had about 6 donations through the PayPal account, which are listed there. And then, of course, PayPal charges a fee if you donate more than $50. And so it shows on the report there that we took off about $35 for PayPal fees. But I think it's worth it because it's a really easy way for people to donate. And so we're able to get over $1,000 in donations so far. I did not list on the treasurer's report who those donors were because I wasn't sure if we wanted to make that public or not. So I thought, since I think it's open records, just wanted to ask you all what your thoughts were on making a public donors list. We didn't ask the donors if they wanted to be made public or not. I'm a little hesitant to do it without having their permission.
In the letter, I don't know how many of them even were. I heard back from a few of the people that I reached out to personally with the letter that I wrote. And it does say in the letter that they will be acknowledged on the website and that they can make a note on their check or in the PayPal. I think there's a way in PayPal when you make a note if they wanted to remain anonymous.
Okay, I haven't been on the website, so I don't know what it says there.
We haven't done anything about donations on the website. That was just in the letter that I drafted that I sent out. So if most of those came from people receiving that letter, they would have been told that they needed to make a note to remain anonymous. Otherwise, they would get recognized. Or they could be recognized. And yes, I think we do need to talk about, if we want to list every donor on the website, or if we don't need to do that, or donations at a certain level.
Other thoughts?
It seems to me that I mean, almost without exception, probably a donation from an organization or from a company is likely going to want the publicity of that. Individuals may or may not. Probably the PayPal or whatever the portal that introduces the PayPal option to potential donors ought to have something similar to what the letter itself says or what the website says, that you can opt in or out. I would suggest if we don't have very many at this point and there's a way to contact them, that maybe just to be on the safe side, that those donors ought to be contacted and asked, those that have contributed already, and ask whether they prefer to be anonymous or have their name recognized.
Well, there's at least 3 of the donors in front of me on the screen. So, but not everybody that donated is on the screen either. So, the ones that are here, of course, I can contact pretty easily, and also ask if you need a tax receipt, and if you want the thank you gift, or not. But I can take care of that. I'd have to double check if I have. You can get a shipping label from PayPal, but I'm not sure if I can get the email address or not. I'd have to double check how to do that.
What I wrote in the letter was donations will be formally acknowledged on our website unless there is a note requesting that the donation remain anonymous, included on the PayPal or check submission. Donations of $250 or more receive a thank you gift from the council.
That pretty well covers it. If everybody who donated had access or saw that information, then I think we're safe to go forward.
We just have to check the website for the PayPal.
And I guess if I knew who donated, I could tell you if they were people that I contacted with this letter. However, I also put it out on Giving Tuesday on social media with a link to the website. So some people might have done it then. And I do not think this statement is not on our website. So
I think that's,
I mean, we could get together and
that's the one I saw. Yeah.
I do know that 3 of the people I sent the letter to said they were going to donate or already did. And some of those have sort of family trust situations. And then I did hear 2 or 3 of the couples that I reached out to are in the Junior Ladies Garden Club. And I heard back from Lucy Allen, who was Ren Allen's mother. Ren served on the council for a while, and she said that she was going to take it up with the garden club, and they were very interested in helping us, but they wouldn't be able to do anything until February. And by helping us, I'm not really sure what that means, but I said, great.
Well, how about, and just for the interest of moving the meeting along, how about if we leave the treasurer's report as is now without donors listed? And I will provide to the Tree Council a separate list of donors, and then we can decide how we want to handle it in January or discuss it in the future. But just for the sake of keeping it private until we know we have permission, just leaving it that way for now.
Yeah, and I would say, Jesse, it's probably a priority to put something like that on the website, on that donor page, right? Well, you have a copy of this letter for that wording, whatever. Okay.
Yeah, I'll just copy from the letter the wording and put that under on the donation page.
Do you have a comment, Rodney?
I have a question. It's really a logistics question about who will send the thank you letters and the gifts and that sort of thing. And we can obviously talk about it later. It might be good if everybody knows their roles and all that.
I've got the notes that Mary gave me for now, so I can do the ones that we already have.
Are the thank you gifts going to be mailed out, or what's the intent or the plan on that?
I gave Pam the prints that we have, and I had some thank you notes printed up at Athens Blueprint with our new logo. And I just paid for that out of pocket. It wasn't very much. I think we had about $17 left for what we were for what we were allocated to spend for promotions, and it was about $30. Anyway, Pam has the gifts and the notes and the stickers. I held back some stickers because I plan to send them to you all, which I haven't done yet. But
So since I've got it all for now, I can arrange with the donors if they want it to be mailed, or if I should just deliver it. It might be easier with those big prints. I think there's only about 3 that donated $250.
So we have those smaller prints for the $250 to $1,000 range, and then the larger prints. Anyway, Pam, I'll talk to you about that privately. Make sure I get my amounts right. But we have a designated where it changes from, goes acorn, sapling, where it changes into a tree species name is where we would consider that more of a corporate donation, even if it is an individual and they get a bigger print.
Okay, that's all I've got then.
Sounds good.
All right, then that brings us to the committee reports from the agenda setting meeting. And we'll start out with the executive committee meeting and the annual report. I definitely got off easy this year considering COVID. That's one bright spot. Not much happened, of course. And so that has to be presented and accepted in January CTC meeting. And that will be, what date? What, anybody have the calendar in front of them? That's the 11th, January 11th. Okay, and also, I've honestly lost track of who's on, what committee. I know I've emailed some folks, and I think Phil and Mary weren't on committees, and I thought they were, or whatever. So, if we can kind of, I don't know if it'd be better with an email or what, just to let me know, who's on what committee. That'd be great. Maybe Rodney, I don't know. Do you have a list of who's on what committee?
There is a list. There's a name of the committee members on, certainly on the minutes, but maybe even also on the agendas. They probably need to be updated, but it would be good if the leader or chair of each of the groups just let us know who the members are.
Great. Yeah, because I know I was copying and pasting from old ones, and like I said, a couple of the members, weren't correct. So that'd be great. Everybody could, and I can send out an email to you guys as well.
Or we could just list the members as we go through each of the reports.
Great. Even better. Okay. Okay. So we won't be able to replace members until April. Our goal of interviewing and improving folks kind of came and went We did meet and interview Holly Campbell over the Thanksgiving week, I guess, which was last week. No, the week before, right? I don't know. But anyway, she was definitely a good candidate. Anybody want to share with us or give a brief rundown of who she is? And
I can if nobody else wants to. Or Seth. Seth can't. Seth knows her better than I can. I'm default to Seth.
Yeah, I think Holly is a great addition to any board or committee or any professional group. I've worked with her in several different capacities. When she was with Southern Region Extension, she was always great to work with. She handled wildfire and urban forestry stuff for SREF, so she was already kind of getting to the urban community forestry world. She's the chair, the current chair, I think, maybe outgoing of Winterville's tree board. She moved away from Winterville, so her official capacity with that board is ending soon. And then now, obviously working with the community forestry emphasis at Warnell. So she's very plugged in with the community forestry world, especially here in Athens. So I can't say enough good stuff about her. So I think she'd be a wonderful addition. Yeah.
me too. And is it right that we should vote for her today? Sorry.
I would recommend waiting until we interview the rest of the candidates and kind of put everyone through a scoring rubric and then vote all together.
Excellent. Okay. Great. I like that idea. Okay. So, which brings us to the MLK Day, and in the committee meetings we talked about doing maintenance in the form of mulch on the trees. I haven't been by Rock Springs, but I know some of the trees at Broad Acres could definitely use some mulch. I think that would be a good opportunity, good socially distanced opportunity, as opposed to planting. Like when lugging around the big bald and burlap trees, sometimes you get pretty up close with others. So I think that would be a good activity for sure. And we could definitely share some mulch with the communities. Anybody else have any ideas on MLK Day activity? Sorry.
I was just going to throw out there, if y'all decide you do want to do any kind of minimal tree planting on MLK, I've got some 18-gallon trees I could donate a few of. So, but I think maintenance, mulching, and basic structural pruning on young trees is a great service day. And I think would be really valuable for those trees y'all planted. So just throwing it out there.
I agree.
Seth, what species of trees do you have in case we need to replace some that died?
I've got an abundance of white oak. I think I've got several northern red oak. I have a lot of swamp chestnut oak those really need to get planted and get out of their pots. Also, I have several bald cypress that need to be planted soon as well. I think beyond that, I might have a couple other randoms, maybe a couple dogwoods, maybe. I think I have a Coosa dogwood. Anyway, I've got several species, but those are the majority. I've got swamp chestnut, white oak, bald cypress, and northern red are the four most abundant ones I have.
Those don't match what we planted at Rock Springs, but it sure would be great if we could get some gratis trees that were of an acceptable species to put back in to take the place of a few of those that got whacked over there.
Well, yeah, just let me know. Just let me know what y'all think. Yeah, I could probably donate in the neighborhood like 3 to 5 of them. something like that. So just let me know what y'all think.
What we had that took the biggest hit as far as the trees were concerned, blueberries and stuff are gone, of course, but we had some serviceberry that got broken and maybe a fig that wound up missing in action. Not sure, but anyway, we can talk more about that at the January meeting or before then.
I do want to mention that I dropped by Broad Acres and those trees look great, by the way. There are a few red buds that maybe are on the ropes, but I'm really impressed with how everything looks over there. Okay, so which brings us to Arbor Day plans. And that's specifically February 19th. I guess in this meeting, we're kind of formulating ideas of the activities, but like, of course, everything is sort of clouded and impacted by COVID. Hard to say what the options will be. And it very well may be just additional mulching, probably, I guess. But Rodney,
for Arbor Day, would we be able to do the firefly planting on Arbor Day? Would that be a possibility?
Yes, Joe, thank you for mentioning that. So basically the setup for that, and we'll probably talk about it when we get to the trees for tomorrow's section, but it would be similar to last year where landscape would place the trees in the ground. They could even backfill them if we needed to, just to keep social distancing and have more of a ceremony about the newly planted trees or something somewhere, something in between, could backfill a couple, small shovelfuls on one tree or just whatever works.
Or even additional mulching of the trees that were recently planted, or saving and not putting the mulch down until then, whatever. It's a good location to have a socially distanced gathering of a sort, and pretty high visibility if we're able to go through with it at that intersection there. Some parking over behind racetrack and so forth.
Well, I wanted to let you all know that I still haven't heard back from the State Farm Community Grant. So I know that we were considering another planting at Broad Acres and also replanting at Rock Springs with those funds if we were to get them. So I think because it's if we don't hear back within the next couple of weeks, I think we should plan to wait on that until the following year if we do get the funding. So that would mean maybe prioritizing the firefly. I think that's more of it. Like, there's less uncertainty there. It sounds like we could plan ahead. We could plan now. Whereas the State Farm, that would require quite a bit of planning and purchasing trees.
I agree.
Yeah, I think that's a good plan. It's February is a great time to plant. We've got basically the plans lined out, so that one seems like a pretty one and done project for us that we could handle without a lot of moving parts.
Okay, great.
Hey, if I could add real quick, sorry, if I could add to the Arbor Day discussion. The Arbor Day Foundation, I guess y'all might know, they waived the requirement for Arbor Day for Tree City certification in 2020. They have provided no guidance about if they're going to require it or not in 2021. So if we end up getting in a situation where maybe y'all are getting pushback about having an event or something, I hope that doesn't happen. But I'll let y'all know as soon as I know if you have to have something for Tree City. If we end up not being able to have an event, you can just read a proclamation at county commission or something, and that would work. Anyway, just wanted to add that.
Yeah, I think that's a good thought. And I also, for the Arbor Day for next year, being with COVID as it is, we probably should not make it a public event. Maybe we can read the proclamation out loud as we plant a tree, and have that be a public media release. But I don't think we need to involve any public, physically present during the activity. I think that should be a tree council only, personally.
I think that's a wise thought, Joe.
Me too. So, which if no one has anything else, we can move on. I think we've effectively covered the Tree Steward Award. We can get back, follow up by email on that. Which brings us to the steering committee, and Seth has graciously accepted the opportunity to do his educational short on tree planting tips and the Georgia Forestry Commission new website to tour. So take it away. Thanks, Seth.
Yeah, no problem. Sorry, I had to get unmuted. Yeah, so I'll try to run through this. Do y'all see my PowerPoint screen right now? Good, awesome. Yeah, I'll try to run through this real quick. I don't want to take up too much of y'all's, administrative time and board time together. Sean just asked me if I wanted to present about maybe a timely tree care topic. I figured tree planting season started, so this is a perfect thing to run through. Also, I figured this is maybe some good info that y'all could all learn if you don't already know, or learn better and share with your neighbors and the people in the community. I'll make these slides available, and all of these graphics you're going to see are on one publication or another on our website, which I'll also try to show you. So if people have questions, you can direct them right to the source with some good diagrams and stuff. So just real quick, like I said, I'll try to zip through this real fast. Whenever I talk about tree planting, I always want to start the discussion for why we plant a tree. There's a litany of reasons why you plant trees, but you don't ever want to plant one just because it's the thing to do, right? So it can have any range of purposes to do it. Some people are more lean towards the ecosystem services. Some people are more focused on beautification and aesthetics, and that's fine. Just whenever you're planting, just always try to have a purpose with it. Site selection is super important when you're talking about tree planting. When we're talking about overhead space, underground utilities, adjacent to concrete or inadequate soil volume, things like that. So, right tree, right place is a mantra that all arborists try to follow when they're talking about tree placement and planting. But this is just a really good diagram from the Arbor Day Foundation, something that everyone here is already familiar with. Don't plant big trees under power lines. Really don't plant any trees under power lines. I'm kind of learning, and as I move along in my career, because trees, even though they're said, oh, it's only going to be 15 foot tall, nature finds a way, right? And they get taller. So, also talking about site selection, I feel like this is the most overlooked part of site selection is available soil volume and open soil surface area for those trees. So you see these numbers, right? So 640 square foot for a large canopy tree. I mean, do we ever see that in an urbanized area in the planting? Definitely not in planting vaults, not in parking lot islands. And it's just a function of, land use and how we expect cities to operate, now. But also, you never see these numbers. And so this square foot of soil surface area is 640, 400, 200. It's based on some numbers from UGA that did some research. And this is actually a pretty small sample size. They only focused on mostly campus trees. But these numbers, one caveat to these numbers is this is only sustainable to about 12 to 14 inches in diameter. So this isn't really like super long-term sustainable, but you always see it in the parking lots, a tree that 5 years lives just fine, then all of a sudden it starts to decline. It's because it's maxed out its soil volume. So This is at least going to get us, you know, ideally to those 10 to 15 inch diameter trees, which is much better than those 3 to 5 inch diameter trees, right? Because I mean, like I said, we as a society plant so many trees that never live to fruition. The average life of a street tree in Georgia has been roughly estimated at 7 years old. That indicates something that can live several hundred years. We're only getting 7 out of. We're not doing something right. So again, I drive this one home. This is a big deal to me, the soil surface area and soil volume. In fact, I would like to see more tree ordinances become soil protection ordinances more than tree ordinances, because that's really what a tree ordinance is kind of doing, protecting the soil for your trees to be sustainable. Through this diagram in here, you know, something you're probably familiar with, just really conceptualizing visually the root system, right? So you hear like, you know, deep rooted, project deep root and things like that, which catchy names and all, but it's not really indicative of how a tree root system grows. In our clay soils, about 80+ % of our roots are in the top 12 to 18 inches of soil. So they're not very deep at all. And they really like to grow out. So an open grown tree is going to have roots sometimes as far out as the tree is tall, sometimes even further out, just depending on soil texture and water availability and those things. But it's important to understand the actual constraints of your root system, especially when you're planting a tree in your yard, because you need to understand, well, if I want this to be one day a 15-inch diameter oak tree, I need to understand the extent of my critical root zone that I need to make sure to protect through not putting impervious surface, no soil compaction, things like that. So it's important just to conceptualize how big everybody always thinks about mature height of a tree. Nobody really thinks about mature root size, root zone size. So, you know, we picked out our site. We got a good site for that. Specimen selection is really important. You know, I highly recommend buying from a local nursery if you can. You know, the big box stores a lot of times are getting kind of the secondhand stuff from the big production nurseries in Tennessee and in Oregon. So you know, it behooves you to try to find a local source that maybe they put more time and effort and care into selecting their trees to sell to you. But big things to look for, regardless of where you're buying them. You don't want to see a tree buried down in its own root ball or way deep in the pot. You know, you want to see that root flare, at least be able to excavate around and find that. If you can't dig down to that and you're finding fibrous roots growing over that root flare, that's not going to be a good tree to pick out. Another thing is consider the diameter of your root ball per the caliper of the tree. So you want 10 to 12 inches diameter for every caliper inch. So a 2-inch caliper tree, you should be looking at least a 24-inch diameter root ball. If it's any narrower than that, you're not bringing enough of the root system with that tree for it to make its way out of transplant shock, more than likely. And just so y'all know, caliper's diameter 6 inches off the ground. You know, unloading and handling trees. This is where a lot of things go wrong with trees. I actually ruined some red maples last year transporting. My tarp was flapping. It was dark. I couldn't see. And it ripped the terminal bud off of 2-3-inch caliper red maples. So it happens, but be very mindful and careful here. Not only, you know, the whipping and stuff hurting your terminal buds, but, you know, trunk scarring and windburn. Windburn's something that gets overlooked. You know, when trees are leaf off, they say you can move them without a wrapping. I still like to wrap my trees regardless, because I feel like that wind still has to put some pressure on the tree's vascular system. But again, just being really careful. Picking the tree up by the root ball or by the pot. Don't pick it up by the stem. I know it's a convenient handle, but that can kind of sever the root plate a little bit sometimes. So just be careful there. So actually talking about planting the tree, you know, this is for planting bald and burlap trees. And I know a lot of us here already have some experience with this, but this is a great diagram right here. It's got kind of all the information you'd need to plant a bald and burlap tree. You'll notice the sides of the hole being nice and kind of sloped. They're not just straight down at 90 degrees perpendicular to the ground. So you kind of got a sloped side. It's going to encourage more radial root growth out of that hole. You'll notice here backfilling with native soil. It's always tempting to ameliorate that soil or add a bunch of compost or organic material, but really you want the soil texture to be the same in that hole as it was before you pulled it out. So you want the water to move through the landscape like it always has, sideways and up and down. And another thing you'll notice about this hole is how much wider it is than the root ball. You just, especially in clay soils, you really want to dig that hole out nice and wide. You know, this is kind of just some of the same things I just mentioned. You know, one important takeaway from this is digging. If you can avoid it, don't dig any deeper than you have to. Because really the bottom of that root ball, no roots are going to grow down. So the bottom of that hole is just holding the weight of the tree. So this is especially important with a bald and burlap tree that weighs 400 to 600 pounds. If you disturb that soil and fluff it up, even if you pack it back down, it's still going to settle a lot more than it would if you hadn't disturbed it once it gets watered in or when it rains. So to avoid excessive settling, try your best to be mindful when you're digging and not go any deeper than you absolutely have to. And this is one thing I like to throw. If you have somebody planting a tree in your yard, if you don't see a pile of refuse by each bald and burlap tree, you might want to have a talk with them. I know some nurseries say you don't have to remove any of it. Some people say remove it all. I've had too many root balls fall apart, taking the whole thing apart before you get it in the hole. So I like to dig my hole, get the bald, the burlap ball into the hole, fully dressed, and then take the top 2/3 off. Remember, we just got to free up that top 12 or 18 inches. The bottom of that basket and burlap will actually kind of hold that root ball together. So another thing, and you'll see how when that machine digs those trees, it up the trunk. So you got to make sure and excavate around the base right there. So planting container trees is probably more likely what you're going to be doing in your backyard on your own, or your neighbors will be doing. A lot of the same principles apply, just a little more focus on the root ball. And so you'll notice same thing, sloped sides, nice and shallow. Here's a way I like to test my depth. I lay a rake across the hole and make sure that our root flare is at least 1 inch, sometimes even 2 inches up above soil grade, because you got to consider it's going to settle when it rains. But the big focus on the root ball here is this. So more often than not, we pull a tree out of a pot and it looks like this. And it's just nature of the beast of growing something in a pot. You're going to get circling roots. That's how it goes. So make sure you can just trim those up. Sometimes you'll notice here, I actually take a saw or a sharp knife or something, serrated blade, and actually like slice this thing and butterfly it like a steak. And it seems like I'm being really rough on the root ball, but you got to do that. Otherwise, you're going to get circling roots. Once they start in that pattern, they never stop. So if you don't do that, this is what you can end up with. And you wonder, you pull the tree up and like, why did this tree die? Well, then you pull it up and wash the roots off, and there you go. Bare root, this is great for, those are just little seedlings like GFC gives away at Arbor Day. Great for volunteers, great for kids, for learning. They don't necessarily always do great with all the urban stressors they face. I really like to take seedlings and pot them up for a year. In fact, those trees I mentioned earlier for MLK Day, those are actually GFC seedlings I had left over at Arbor Days, and I pot them up. Same principles here. The only difference is you dig your hole and then build a little mound back in your hole and then put your little root system on there and kind of feather it out. So, and so that's all. Those are quick diagrams about planting. Real quick, just some after planting things. Watering begins the day you planted that tree. As soon as you take it out of its pot or start undressing it, or when it's been dug at the nursery, it's going into transplant shock, right? So its water needs are going to go way up at that moment in time. So watering starts right then. I forgot to put the number on the slide, but a good rule of thumb to follow is about 5 to 7 gallons per caliper inch. And that's at planting, and also once a week, every week for the foreseeable future, right? Until you get the tree out of establishment. And I've got a slide about that. So 5 to 7 gallons per caliper inch, at least once a week. If it's a really small tree, like a really small containerized tree, maybe twice a week, because it's going to dry out a lot faster. But trees really like to get all the way saturated, all the way dried out, saturated, dried out. They don't like to stay damp all the time. You get surface roots, root rot, that kind of stuff. So, after we plant, obviously, these are a great list of reasons why we would mulch the tree after we plant it. It sounds like y'all understand the importance of mulch. I think it's one of the most overlooked post-planting tree care things that's affordable and accessible and very beneficial. Obviously, we don't want to do this. I got to throw this slide in there every time I can. You don't want to mulch your trees like that. Volcano mulch. So again, this is what you're looking for. Just a nice flat uniform disc, about 2 or 3 inches thick. I like to go at about 4 feet in a radius on a newly planted tree. But if it's an established tree, ideally we're mulching out to the drip line, which is the furthest out branches. Obviously, with a really big tree, not always practical. I found a tree today, measured one that has an 81-foot radius critical root zone. So that's not necessarily practical to mulch, but the wider you can mulch, the better, right? Staking, I'm not going to go into too much detail. I don't stake trees unless I absolutely have to, because it makes them weaker in the long run. But if you have to stake and strap a tree, just make sure to remove it after that first year. If you don't, the tree just gets used to it and doesn't know how to stand up on its own. So sometimes if you leave it too long or too tight, you take the straps off, the tree just kind of falls over. So it's important to take those away. And just kind of wrapping up, I mentioned that survival and that establishment period, So my rule of thumb I follow is a year of establishment period for every inch of caliper at planting. So if I plant a 2-inch caliper tree, I'm thinking I've got to take care of that tree for 2 growing seasons and maybe even a third one, but usually at least 2 to get it out of establishment. And during that, when I say establishment, that's when you're doing your watering, structural pruning, being extra cautious about weed eaters and mowing, stuff like that. But it's just important to take care of the trees, again, during that establishment phase. Once they get a critical mass of roots and enough surface area of roots built up, usually they can do their own thing. Cool. So that's all I had. I love this little picture because it shows all the things that are stacked against an urban tree. So we got our work cut out for us, but we can do it, right? So that's all I had there. I don't know if anybody has any questions real fast. I know I kind of took my 10 minutes, so I'll just show you all our website really quickly, just so y'all can see. We just launched a new site recently, and it's just got a lot of great resources that I thought would be useful for y'all individually and to share with people. So gatrees.org. So this is our homepage. Can't get to my thing. Y'all are, there we go. So go to Urban Community Forestry. The quickest way to access, I think the most organized way of our resources, go to our Ask the Arborist page. And here you're going to find almost all of our fact sheets, all labeled individually in different topics. We got structural issues, basic tree care. We also just launched this. It's a new video series we just launched. It's mostly me. It's a lot of me, so I wouldn't watch them all at once. But it's a lot of good tree care videos that are real succinct and real to the point and have a lot of pruning, mulching, watering. We just made a really good one on planting container trees. I think it's down, right there. So anyway, I just wanted to show you all that. Another way to access even more resources that might not be caught here, just go to our resources tab. And you can filter by urban and community forestry. If I can find it. There we go. And here is every single publication I've ever seen GFC come out with in 6 years is all listed right here, as well as links to other agencies and other groups, other advocacy groups, resources from Extension, other forestry agencies, universities. So anyway, I know it's a lot, but I invite y'all just to go look around on it. Beyond the Urban and Community Forestry tab, there's a lot of other great resources. Obviously, this is the one I'm focused on. But yeah, I invite y'all to go check it out. There's a lot of good stuff, and the more y'all could help us share that stuff would be great.
Thanks a lot, Seth. I really appreciate that. And I'd love to spin the bottle and, pick somebody to do the next one in January. But how about a volunteer for the next January?
I'll say, now that I'm done with my official capacity, here's my Christmas sweater. Yeah.
Oh man, I forgot. Thank you. What a sport. That's great. Anybody else? Anybody volunteer for 2021 first educational short? I know we have a bunch of interesting people with interesting backgrounds, so should I pick somebody? All right, great. So, all right, which brings us to the interview committee. Once again, we covered that with Holly. I think we need to add anything more other than I think we would have 3 more applicants, right, Rodney?
Yes, we do. I could look up their names if you want, but we have 3 more applicants to interview.
Awesome, cool.
Rodney, if you have time, I'd love to know who they are.
Sure, give me 1 second. Okay, so Abel Kleinbaum, Ernie Cox, and Patrick Perry. And I do have the resumes for each one of these individuals and their application forms. So I guess, once the interview committee does the interview, and we can talk about each one more in detail.
Sounds great. So, which brings us to the trees for tomorrow. committee. And Phil, I believe you have an action item, right?
I do. And if I may take just a minute to sort of build the case for the action item, just to refresh everybody's memory, we talked a little earlier in today's meeting about the location for the plantings on the Firefly. That is the project that is before the Trees for Tomorrow group right now. We have no others at present, but the area there near the racetrack on Lexington Highway intersection with Old Winterville Road is sort of the terminus of the second phase of the Firefly, and that's where we had planned to do a rather larger planting than it looks like we're going to be able to, because there's still a good bit of flux going on there with that corner and how the road is going to be shaped and how much land and pavement is going to be removed between the trail and Lexington Highway there on that corner. So what we have available for us right now is just a rather narrow grass median between the end of the fencing for the trail and the corner of the intersection between Little Oak Street and Old Winterville Road. I have gone and done some measuring and looked, and we can get, given the setback of 35 feet that we must have from the curb at the intersection, moving back toward the downtown along the edge of the trail, we can get probably at least eight trees or plants in that area, spacing them 15 feet apart. And we had talked earlier and made a decision that probably the best, most appropriate, because of power lines and narrowness of availability of overhead space, crepe myrtle would be a full-size crepe myrtle, such as the Biloxi, like we planted at the Broad Acres site, would be most appropriate. We have I've gone over and done some measuring and spaced that out, and we can get 8 there. We still haven't heard back on the location of the underground utilities, but my understanding is that the landscape crews will be responsible for determining that. At present, it looks like everything is go for 8. I finally got in touch with the folks down at Moon Tree Farm today. They have that same variety, Biloxi crepe myrtle, available. They're a little larger than what we planted. 12, at least they were listed as 12 feet tall, multiple trunk Biloxi crepe myrtles when we planted them at Broad Acres. Now they tell me that they don't have anything under a 14-foot listing, but the price for them is the same, $250 each, as it was 2 years ago. So that's a pretty good deal considering how things have gone up. So what I am asking for is the go-ahead from the full council to purchase 8 of these crepe myrtles at $250 each. There will be sales tax in addition, and there may or may not be a trucking fee depending on whether we find someone to do it for us without charge or not. But that could be $400 or so. So let me just see if I can put this into a motion. I move that the Trees for Tomorrow work group be given permission to purchase 8 14-foot Biloxi crepe myrtles from Moon Tree Farm to be planted in the median strip as previously indicated, adjacent to the Firefly Trail this winter.
Phil, I have a little bit of information that may help inform this motion.
Okay. Please share.
Our operations coordinator went out and looked at the site today, and he was looking at the stop sign. And the stop sign is 3 feet back from the edge of the intersection. So he suggested planting 35 feet from the stop sign. And with that in mind, he thought it would be more realistic to have 7 trees at that site.
Okay. Okay. If 7 is what will fill the space, then that's fine with me. So we can modify that. I'll go over and take a look at it again. I thought that even coming back another 5, now 8 feet from where I had started would still give us room to get 8 in, but we can just
He went out. He said he went out and marked it with flags.
Okay.
And he was kind of calculating 15-foot spacing in between the trees.
Yeah, I had marked it as well, but that's fine. Let's go with 7 then. Definitely be room for that, assuming that there's no underground utility issue.
Do they all have to be crepe myrtles?
I don't suppose that they do.
Are there overhead wires? I mean, is there a reason that we're staying with a small tree?
You heard Seth talking about the soil space, and that's one issue with this narrow strip. It is really probably from 10 to 15 feet wide as far as available soil surface or grass area. Then on the one side will be the pavement of the Firefly Trail itself. The other side will be Little Oak Street, which is obviously curbed and paved.
Okay.
We thought kind of from an aesthetic point, we were hoping to do a lot of native trees on the opposite side of the trail and then down the big swath, but that's the area that's going to get reconfigured. So we're waiting on that. But having a real show of something, it has to be so tough right there. And that's just kind of where we landed. But we thought all of one thing in an alley kind of would.
Yeah. Well, there's several things going on. One is the height. The other is we need a bare trunk that's up above automobile height, because that is going to be an intersection area, which is going to require a good deal of visibility as well. So these large crepe myrtles already have a bare trunk up to where their foliage begins. So it kind of gives us a head start for something that's appropriate for that little spot. I would agree with Mary that we still are hopeful that we can have a much better variety and diversity of planting on the other side in a larger area that will be available. But we just have to postpone that at least until next year, because we don't know what it's going to look like.
Thanks, Bill.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think y'all have made a great argument for the design and the species selection, and sounds like we've taken into consideration the site triangle that's required by the county. So, I mean, I think that this is a pretty well thought out plan, and yeah, I'm in agreement. Yeah, I think it's great.
I would definitely like to see headway made on the Trees for Tomorrow project.
I think we still need a second for the motion. but maybe we should modify the motion to 7 crepe myrtles instead of 8, or clarify
Right.
that, and then,
Consider that an amendment.
okay.
Yeah, I'll second it.
All in favor? All right, it has been passed that we are going to, can you help me with the wording, Bill? I'm sorry.
Sure, I'll send you something if that's okay. Now that we've talked about it, and I'll reword it.
I have the wording if you would like.
Okay,
Great,
Rodney.
thank you, Rodney.
The motion to purchase 7 14-foot crepe myrtle trees from Moon's Tree Farm to be planted in the medium strip adjacent to the Firefly Trail by Little Oak Street and Old Winterville Road.
Does the motion need to include when we're going to plant them?
Include what? I'm sorry.
It doesn't have.
He said this winter, and when he gave the original.
Okay. Do we need to make a second? I know we discussed possibly doing that as our Arbor Day planting. Would that be a separate motion then?
We can do it either way, however you'd like to. It's, we're relying on landscape to dig the holes and do the planting. So we might be better served to hold off on labeling it as the Arbor Day planting until we see what their scheduling is. But surely we're going to have it in place by Arbor Day, February.
I'm sure they'll be able to plan it around that time. The tree council's given the landscape plenty of notice, so they'll be able to do it. They've committed to doing it. The real question is, do you want to keep your options open for the development of COVID and other things, and vote about Arbor Day specifically as we get a little closer?
I see no reason not to just make that as a separate motion after the first of the year when we see how things are shaping up, if that's okay with everyone.
I don't see the need to over specify at this point.
Okay, great. And Bill, you may have said this, and I apologize if so, but what kind of lead time does Moons need, prior to delivery?
We did not talk about that. I honestly have been trying to get in touch with them and just got in touch with them about lunchtime today, finally, with a definitive answer on availability and price. But normally in the past, they've only required 1 to 2 weeks notice to have them dug and ready to be transported. So we could deal with that right after New Year's and have them here in plenty of time, I think.
Okay, thank you. Guys, I think it would be a good opportunity to recognize that we're sort of running out of time. We've got 13 minutes, and can you guys help me with prioritization of items that can be tabled and versus what needs to be discussed?
The education committee can probably be skipped. You agree, Edith? Yeah.
Anybody else have any insight, Rodney?
I don't have any specific insight, but the main things that needed to be talked about for kind of planning for the next year were covered. So it's just whatever you think is makes the most sense.
Okay, so I guess we can continue as we were, but yeah, I just wanted to make that note. Okay, so promotions committee, Mary, you want to talk about what's on your agenda there?
Sure. We covered some of the donations information. I'm glad to see that we have some donations rolling in. I'll send out another round. I'm keeping track of who I've sent the letter to, so I'll send it to them again. Yes, so I don't think that Jesse's still here, but we wanted to be, what I didn't put in the letter that I just made a note of is that that we are nonprofit. And that's something that we need to put on there. And but we have updated that officially and it's on the website, so that's good. Jesse was going to work on the fact that when you Google us, our old website comes up. And so that needs to be rerouted to our current website, which is Athens-Clarke.com. But really, I feel good that, it seems like mostly what we're working on right now is getting word out that we're trying to raise money. Again, I just encourage you, if you see something, if you are on social media, to share it and share, get the word out that we are actively accepting donations. One thing that we're going to talk about as a committee, and I'm happy to take any input on this, is how to come up with a way to be like a sustaining donor. And sometimes it's even hard for people to keep track of what they've given and decide if they want to give every year, or it's possible that people want to give monthly. And I know different organizations, I've been doing a little bit of research on that. I wanted to say that currently the promotions committee consists of me, Joe Perloff, Jesse, and Tori officially. I need some clarification on our work group that works on raising money, and there's grant writing and sort of is that considered a subset of promotions exactly? And Edith reached out to me to say that she was interested in helping with grant writing, which is awesome. So sad that we're going to lose Nina here soon. She's been so instrumental with that. Mark as well. So what did we decide about this fundraising work group? How does it fit in? Does it need to be a subset of a committee? Am I?
There's no reason for it to be a subset,
Okay.
but obviously they would work really close with promotions.
Sure. I feel like we're doing, and it almost seemed like it was more of a sort of grant, researching grant opportunities and grant writing. And then a lot of that kind of reaching out to potential individual donors or corporate donors was kind of falling under promotions in general. That's sort of in my head how it seems to be happening. It's not to say that we can't all do both things. That's about all I have. Thank you.
I had a question about, is there a prohibition against having a link from the government website to our webpage? I think it might be a little confusing for people that are looking for information about the Tree Council and going to the government website and thinking, oh, well, that's all there is.
Correct.
Very glad you asked that, Edith. No, there is no prohibition. I need to fix the link so that the government Tree Council webpage links to the new webpage, and I will do that. I made a note to do that.
Okay.
And we could also have a link to the government site, which is where the official application is to apply to be on the council. So it would be worthwhile to the government site on our separate website as well. So that's a good point. I'll make a note of that on our end too.
Okay.
Mary, I'm kind of just going in order, but you want to rattle off other notes you have on these bullets here?
Sure. As far as donation letters go, I don't know if anyone else has sent a version of that to people they know. Tori had somewhere to be today, but she did say that she and her husband were both going to send versions of that letter out to lawyers that they know in the community. So anybody's welcome to do that on their own. I already talked about nonprofit status, and Jesse and I are working on our contact information on the website right now. We don't have the old email address is on there, but I did fix the Facebook and Instagram contacts so that our current website is listed on Facebook and Instagram. So Jesse has a little bit of tweaking to do, and I don't have any idea what this current keyword search is. I didn't write that, I don't think. I don't know. Maybe Jesse submitted that. Oh, is that just when you search us on Google? Maybe Sean took my comments on that. Yes. So I already commented on that as well.
So in order not to hold up the meeting, Lee, would you like to comment about the policy committee? Any thoughts? Mary isn't here, so I don't know if there's much to report really.
Can I jump in? I just thought of one more thing. Edith, what are you serving on a committee officially in official capacity yet?
What was the question? I'm sorry.
I was wondering if you wanted to officially be on the promotions committee or if you were serving on other.
It would make sense to me to, since I'm on the education committee, to maybe be the liaison to promotions.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
more specifically, just work on the grant writing.
That's perfect. That's a good answer.
Clarifies.
Okay, we ready for the policy? Okay. At the policy committee, we discussed, we're trying to get some independent funding sources. And we had previously talked about just asking the mayor and the commission for money, but apparently the way to do it is to get money from the mayor's discretionary prerogative fund, and that it's going to go, let's see, money is going to be allocated to central services, and that's going to go through Rodney's budget in an independent account. And it was going to work that way. We talked about in committee. We also talked about the tree planting pool or a tree bank, and we need an agreement about the purpose of a tree fund or a tree bank or a tree pool. And then I think Rodney was going to talk with the attorney's office about it. We don't have a holding area right now. We had one in the past, but we don't have one now. That does involve a lot of expense with equipment and fuel and transport and watering. And so we talked about whether to resurrect that again.
I won't have time to talk with the attorney's office for a few months. So if the committee wants that to do that, we'll have to have someone else contact them. But one of our members works for the attorney's office, so that might be a very good inroad for that conversation.
Absolutely. So that's all that my notes show from the policy committee, unless Rodney or Mark's not here, Mary's not here, Sean was there, Joe Bates is not here. So it's pretty much me, Rodney, and Sean that are here for policy. So if y'all don't have anything else to add, that wraps up policy.
I don't, but I guess it looks like we're nearing the end of the meeting here, and I think that would be a good good place to conclude. Does anyone have anything else? Great. Well, once again, thank you, Seth, for your contribution, and I'd love for another volunteer to take up the educational short, but let me know. And in 2021, it's been great being the president, and looking forward to Joe stepping up in his role. He'll do an even better job. I know that. So, all right. Thank you very much. And I guess we need to make a motion to conclude the December meeting.
I just want to say, Sean, thanks for everything you've done this year. You've done a great job, and I look forward to taking the torch in January.
Great. Looking forward to it as well. All right. I make a motion to conclude the meeting.
I'll second.
All in favor? Great. Happy holidays, everyone, and look forward to seeing you in the new year. Take care. Nice work. Thanks.
Happy
Thanks. Stay safe,
holidays.
y'all.
Thank
Bye.
you.